There are millions of acres of opportunity out there. They belong to you. Every day, decisions are being made that affect your land, your water, your wildlife. You should know about them. This is your mountain.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Your Mountain podcast. This is kind of a unique Your Mountain podcast because I want to say, have we done one of these without Dave?
Yeah, you and I did one time with the molars, but
it was so good too, wasn't it?
It's pretty rare, though.
You know
of
what's
course.
funny? One of our guests tonight, we'll get to that in a second, but one of our guests was this as a guest that we also had on that podcast where he talked about the shooting sports. And so, yeah, but kind of unfortunate. Dave couldn't be with us this evening. You know, we all have, regular jobs and regular lives. Fortunately for me, this evening I was able to get on an elk hunt. And that's kind of exciting for me. What are you up to tonight, Mike?
Oh, work. That's the life of an attorney. I'm doing work after this.
So I got home from Dave and I recorded some podcasts after an event that we went to with Outdoor Recreation, and I got off the airplane. And this is how cool my wife is. I got off the airplane, went home. Threw my suitcase in the house, picked up my hunting bags that I already had packed, threw them in the back of my truck, and my one of our guests joined me, and we drove out to Cody, Wyoming immediately. Getting back from a family vacation, I got to come out here and do a late season cow elk hunt with some really, really cool guests. And so the first one I want to introduce, and I'm going to apologize because his microphone, I gave him the bad mic, is my good buddy Scott Steiert. Scott.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Scott Steiert. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad Nephi actually allows me to have a mic on this, so that's awesome. But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
And I want to explain how I know all these guys here in a second, but I met Scott through Outdoor Recreation event. Scott and I did a competition. A shooting competition called the Sniper Adventure Challenge. Scott was my teammate 3 years ago, and that's how we met. Was kind of talking about this event, and then Scott worked for a company called Hyphenated-Hunters at the time. Now, Scott, you work for a training company, right?
Northern Red Training. Yep.
And so, for those of you who didn't know, training, is you're going to go out there and do some adventure, like a rifle class or a pistol class. That's going to be the outdoor recreation economy too. Next to you, Scott, we have guest number two. Guest number two because I really felt like we had to have an attorney here. Ryan Cleckner, Mr. Ryan Cleckner.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me on, man.
Ryan, what brings you to Wyoming?
Elk hunting. Hanging out with you.
You know what I think is impressive about Ryan Cleckner? Like when people talk about shooting and they want to talk about Ryan literally wrote the book on shooting.
Yes, he
wrote
did.
the book on long-range shooting.
What book
sure
is
did,
that?
Man. The long-range shooting handbook. I wasn't very creative on the title, but I think that works for it.
What's your background?
I was in the military just like Scott and the next guest, Kyle. I left. Matter of fact, I used to work for the NSSF, just like you do.
We don't talk about that on this podcast, but you are correct.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's just the Your Mountain podcast.
And then I went on.
Not sponsored, but it's
No. Just
not
talking about what we
affiliated
do.
with our day jobs.
No, and
my day job at least. Yours, we want to know all about it.
I stayed in the firearms industry, went on with Remington Outdoor Company, and then ended up going out on my own. I'm a firearms attorney, and I represent FFLs all across the country. I like writing books and shooting and teaching shooting and starting companies with Kyle and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Man of many hats.
Man of many hats. Next, we have The Godfather.
I kind of like that. And I actually wrote those two books on shooting.
So everybody, really, really pleased to have Mr. Kyle Lamb.
Nice to be here, man. This is awesome.
So
yeah, and you guys, we're not only here as a guest, but we're actually partnered with you guys. Or can we say that yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this will come out after we've announced it. So one of our partners is Viking Tactics. So Kyle, you Viking Tactics, you told me you don't own that company though.
No, I don't. Actually, my wife owns that company, so I do what I'm told. And all joking aside, she really is the CEO of Viking Tactics. We started that company together, but she is the boss. She owns I think 99% the last time I looked at the paperwork there, which I'm good with because She does 99% of the work, so I get to do the 1% of the work, and it's awesome. We stay in our lanes. We used to not, or I used to not, but now I stay in my lane. She's the boss, and she lets me do what I want when I'm doing my thing out on the range or hunting or riding or whatever. But when it comes to our business at, selling products out of our warehouse there in Tennessee, I mean, she's the boss for sure,
So, Kyle, I'm going to come back to this because this is interesting. But so you run Viking Tactics, and you know Scott from work.
Yep, we used to be in the same unit. Yep. Tier 1 unit that we were out there operating. Yeah, so we were in different squadrons, but yeah, we worked in the same place, and I don't know what else to say about that, but it's fun for me because I knew who Scott was, but I didn't really know Scott until we came out and hunted a year ago here.
Yep.
And it's awesome because not just like a guy like Scott, former military dude, former special ops guy, same thing with Ryan, but sitting around a table of guys that you've hunted with, it's that tribal thing, and that's yeah, man, it's awesome.
It's just being around good people, meeting people who are like-minded. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, you don't have to be in the military, obviously, but I mean, people who are like-minded. We're all hunting. We're here, connected by a common bond of hunting. So, and same thing. It's like I remember seeing Kyle in the chow hall there at work, and then of course Kyle went on, and he's I call him the Godfather because pretty much everything I've learned is because of Kyle, and just that, he did his thing. And I'm like, man, I've never like really talked, sat down and talked. I've seen him, I see him all over the place, but he's so busy and he's always talking about it. But it's just great to get to know him. Great guy. And everybody who's ever met Kyle, I was like, yeah, it's like, oh man, Kyle, he's the greatest guy. I'm like, yeah, he's the greatest guy ever. He's like super nice, super approachable, but no, it's been a pleasure. So
now, Ryan, I didn't comment on this, but you have a military background as well, right?
I do.
And what?
Much shorter.
Yeah.
I did one enlistment.
Yeah, but you were a ranger, correct?
I was a ranger. Yeah.
And
in the ranger battalion
yes,
too.
Yeah. There's a difference.
Real ranger.
Yes, Scott.
Yeah. your name comes up all over the place because not only literally wrote the book on shooting technique on on a lot of things that I think are really interesting. But also, you're a guy who came out of the service, right, and then went to law school.
That's true. Now, a surprising number, Kyle and I talked about this on his podcast, that a surprising number of us went to law school and became lawyers. So at the time, in any Ranger Battalion, so I was in 1st Ranger Battalion, there's 6 snipers in this section at the time, and more than half, I think 4 of us became lawyers.
That's crazy. That's
scary.
We
never planned it. We never thought about it. We just went out, and my first team leader, my spotter, actually went back in, became a JAG officer, and is still serving right now. So
we can shoot you, and then we can litigate ourselves out of the shooting.
Yeah, so I think it was the challenge to do next. I never wanted to be a lawyer. Just I went back and finished my undergrad and said, well, what do I do now? Life got pretty boring, even after just one enlistment of being in a unit and a couple deployments like that, and going, well, I wanted my next challenge. What am I going to do next? I don't know. Let's go to law school. And that's kind of how life went. So
yeah, and I think it was really interesting. We talked about attorneys, and you said to me about attorneys, you said you didn't necessarily love attorneys, but you said what?
I didn't say that. I said I hate attorneys too. So they made some kind of comment about attorneys and like, aha, Ryan, we got you. We don't, attorneys, they're the worst. I said, I know they are. I said the best defense against a bad attorney is a good attorney. So
yeah,
here I am.
Our podcast, I told you this, you can get CLE credits for listening to the Your Mountain podcast.
Look at that.
Yeah, and that's probably not this episode, but some episodes where the guys like, Mike and Dave are experts at the craft, and so it's fun to dig into some stuff with them. We also have at the table a couple of businessmen. So everybody we've talked about so far has a business in the outdoor recreation space, and you guys run a business in the outdoor recreation space too. So we don't have a headset on Jeff, but we do have one on John Burns. John, you want to tell us about your involvement in the outdoor recreation space?
Jeff and I own a company called Wyoming Arms. We build what we think of as high-end semi-automatic hunting rifles. They're also useful for a lot of other things that aren't for hunting. But, we've used some of them today, or this hunt right here, 6mm, 6.5 Creedmoor, had a good time with them. We killed a lot of rocks
Yes, we
killed
did.
a lot of rocks.
Yes.
They're awesome guns.
The rocks in the Bighorn Basin should be very afraid of everyone on this table.
Fun thing about shooting rocks is that you don't have to retrieve them. You don't have to dress them out.
There's not a lot of work.
Yeah, but they don't taste very good, man.
Well, you know,
Nephi tried to hide the rock in my bag today, too.
Yeah,
But,
unsuccessfully.
Amateur hour here.
Kyle gifted me a 15-pound rock on a recent archery elk hunt that we did. And after I got home, I got a text from the super secret satellite phone of Mr. Kyle Lamb that said, hey, did you check your backpack yet? And sure enough, I had a head-sized rock in my backpack, courtesy of Kyle Lamb. So
that just never gets old, does
it?
Huh?
No, I love it. I love it.
You know, no, it's been fun. So, I wanted to talk a little bit. We wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about not just the outdoor recreation space, but a little bit about veterans in the outdoor recreation space. John, you're a veteran also.
Yes, I was in the
Air Force POL post.
Yep, I was in the Air Force, so we were a little bit higher level than the Army guys.
Yeah.
Typically a lot more training. Really rigorous 6-week long basic training.
Yep.
And it was really difficult.
We were driving up a hill and we stopped at glass over the edge of the hill. And he goes, "You probably didn't cover this in the Army, but we call this in the Air Force, we call this a deflate position."
He said we would do this. We roll up on an airfield to make sure it's okay to refuel.
Yeah, when we were rolling out on the flight line, just to make sure that F-15 was ready for you to drive up and pump a lot of gas to it.
So the outdoor recreation economy, this is something we talked with the leaders of state outdoors offices of recreation a couple of weeks ago. And the outdoor recreation economy, that's 2% of the GDP. So what does that mean? We have some military guys here, so to put it in terms, that's more than any of our NATO allies spend on defense spending. That's how much Americans are spending on outdoor recreation. So it is a big...
God bless America.
It is a big industry. So it's an $800 billion industry.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's something to be proud of, and it's something that obviously we care about. But, I have some good buddies who served, and I really appreciate having you guys as friends, and the fact that we get to go out and do stuff like this. But what does the great outdoors mean to veterans? What does it mean to you guys when you get an opportunity to come out here? Because I often think about this. My good friend Rourke, Denver, who came out, and I've wanted to ask him. It's like when you guys go overseas, one of the things that I'm struck with, because I didn't have the opportunity to serve, is you guys come back and you get to do this stuff, and I feel like that's only fair that you guys get to come back and absolutely enjoy, I think, the gifts that you guys help protect for all of us. I want to know, what you guys think about your opportunities in the great outdoors. Why do you hunt? What's in it for you? Why are you a sportsman? Why is this something that you like to do?
Well, for me, I can tell you, it's not about killing something, which a lot of people think, oh yeah, you were special operations, you just need to go kill something to feel like you need to kill something, right? Because you miss it or something. That is not the case. Okay. And, in fact, I don't know if, I don't have anybody's that's what drives it. For me, it's a very broad thing. It's not just one. Okay, it's being in the outdoors. There's something soothing about being in the mountains. That's why everybody flocks to the mountains. Everybody flocks to the ocean. There's something soothing about being in nature. And it makes me feel small. It makes me if I'm outside, if I'm by myself and I'm just kind of out in the woods. Usually I don't hunt by myself, but if I'm scouting, if I'm out in the woods just like prepping for a hunt, it's a very calming feeling. Okay, when it comes time to actually hunt, okay, it's the whole process of I get up early in the morning. Hey, I have something to do now. I'm not in the Army anymore. I'm not told what to do, but I have to kind of figure it out on my own. But I get up early. I pack my rucksack. I make sure I have everything. I got a checklist, and I have a plan of action. I have a strategic plan on how I'm going to go after this animal. So it's for me, it's familiar in that I'm hunting something, I'm going after something, I have a goal, and it's very familiar to what I used to do in the military. It's physical. I'm going up and down. I'm not a big, sit in a stand and kind of. I'm too hyper for that. So I want to get out there and move around and everything. So it keeps me in shape And so there's a lot of reasons. And then the other side of that is taking my girls. I have two daughters that I like to take out to the woods with me, and I just enjoy seeing them in the woods with me and passing this down to them. So that's also something.
When did you start hunting?
I actually started hunting at a very late age. My father did not hunt. He was not a hunter. It wasn't something that was passed down to me. But when I retired, when I moved to Wyoming, in 2012 is when I started hunting, and I've always wanted to do it. Just I was always on deployment. I was always gone, and when I came back, it wasn't time to go into the field with my buddies because I missed my family. So I stayed with my family, and then between family training and then deployments, I just never had a chance to hunt. So when I moved to Wyoming, it was towards the end of my career, and I finally, I was in Wyoming. There's so much. There's hundreds of thousands of acres to hunt. It's great. It's easy, and it's available. And so I finally started hunting when I got here, towards the end of my career.
So Kyle, a lot of folks probably recognize you. Maybe listeners of this podcast from work that you've done outside of the military. Like you had a show on Sportsman's Channel, correct?
Yeah, Viking Chronicles. Yep.
And so you've been a hunter for a lot longer than Scott.
Yeah, I started hunting when I was just I don't remember not hunting. So when I was a kid, I would shoot Tweety birds, whatever was around. I shot a lot of blackbirds and you lawyers, how long?
Statute of limitations.
Yeah, what's the statute of limitations on this? We would go out. As a kid, I would shoot everything I could with my BB gun. Then
Legally.
I got a pellet. Most of it was not legal, but whatever. Pellet rifle. Then I got a 22. I would use my dad's lever action Marlin 39A 22. I started getting 5 cents for every gopher that I'd shoot. So I would take my 3-wheeler out or my horse. I'd ride my horse up to our pastures to count cattle. I had a can of beans, and I had a P38 can opener. I'd count cattle, and I would shoot as many gophers as I wanted to shoot. And when I did that around our place, I did it off a 3-wheeler, and I had bread sacks I'd fill with these dead gophers, bring them back. My dad would count them up. I'd get 5 cents a piece. We'd feed them to our barn cats, and they would just tear them up. They would eat hundreds of these things. We had a lot of cats because we had a lot of buildings. We had horses and cattle and things like that. Then I got into... we shot a lot of pheasants in South Dakota as well. I gutted a lot of deer until I was old enough to get my first license, and there it's a draw. So I drew that when I was 12 years old, went on my first deer hunt, killed my first deer with a 30-30, borrowed the 30-30 from the neighbor, and my dad had a Winchester Model 94, but he wouldn't let me use that. I had to use the neighbor's. Was it a Marlin? He had a Winchester Model 94. I shot it with a Marlin like an 1895 or whatever, and that first deer that I shot kicked the crap out of me. I shot it. It went sliding, head underneath the corn stalks. I walked up. I was so proud. I laid my gun up against one of the corn stalks, and I pulled out my knife, and I stuck it in the guts of this thing to start gutting it, and it kicked me right almost in the crotch there. And I stepped back, and I did my best imitation of the rifleman, and I filled this thing full. I emptied my gun into this deer, and the deer was then dead, and that was my first experience. But I continued to hunt as I grew up. Mostly gophers were my favorite. We didn't have a lot of coyotes up in that area. We shot a few fox, few raccoons, things like that. But that's how I got started. So my dad was a lot older than me. He was born in 1911, and he didn't support me really in sports because he wasn't going to go out and really play baseball or anything with me. But anything to do with rodeo or guns, he was all in. So I got to rodeo as much as I wanted to, and I got to shoot as much as I absolutely wanted to. So there was never a shortage of. I remember going in our house. You'd open up the door, walk in, and under the sink in our entry, there was just always ammo there. That's just how it was. My dad, and it was lead ammo, by the way. And I shot as much as I wanted to. I shot on the JC shooting team, and yeah, I don't remember not shooting. Now, when I joined the military, that all came to a screeching halt.
When did you join the military?
1986.
So 1986.
I got married and then left for the military a couple weeks later, and that was kind of the end of my hunting and shooting for a while because I had to go through a bunch of training, and then hunting is difficult when you're in the military. Even if you want to try to do it, it's hard to hunt on. I was at Fort Bragg a lot. not real easy to hunt there. I did it. I hunted up with on some of the private property with some of my buddies there as well. But hunting deer, I actually hunted deer with dogs, which I'd never done that before. And I'm not a big fan of that, but for a culture thing, it was awesome because we would all get together in the morning and we'd all eat way more bacon than we should and eggs and stand around with these awesome Southern dudes, and all their families were there. It wasn't like the dad. It was the dad and the grandpa and then the brother-in-law and then all their kids, and we'd eat until we were full, and then they'd make cat head biscuits, and they'd make which cat head biscuits looks like a cat head. That's why it's called a cat head biscuit. Big Angora cat, not one of them slick little kittens. But we'd eat all that, then you'd draw a number, and you'd say, okay, number 4. All right, get in this truck. And they would drive you around with your shotgun. You'd get off and stand at the tree with the number 4 on it, and you would wait. And deer would run by me, and I'm like, well, that's crazy. And these dogs would go run these deer. It was awesome. I mean, really, like I said, I'm probably not into that, but I love the fact that that's how those guys grew up. That's what they do. That's tradition. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
so I've noticed you're really into Western hunting.
Why do you
maybe
say
you're
that?
Into because maybe my bias is I always meet you out here and you're always hunting big game, like you're always chasing big game someplace.
Yeah, like in the military, we talk about not hunting. Every time I deployed, I hunted. I don't remember ever going on a combat deployment and not hunt. Now, I'm not talking about hunting people. Obviously, we're doing that. That's we try to get our terrorist grand slam, and we go to different continents, and you harvest a terrorist from each continent. I know Scott. I think he filled it. He had to you can get a hybrid. Like if you have a Moroccan that's in Iraq, that counts as a hybrid, and that's part of your terrorist grand slam there as well. But no, one of the things we did. So like in Somalia, when we went to over to Mogadishu back in the early '90s, there's a movie made famous.
Yeah,
or that mission was made famous by that. But
if you don't mind me backing you up a little bit, and maybe it's worth talking about that, as we talk about, why you enjoy to hunt. But can I ask you about your career a little bit?
I guess if you want to interrupt my story.
I'm sorry.
Because pigeons.
Just mention the engagement.
A lot of people who
pigeons.
Listen to this.
We shot so many pigeons. I mean, really, and you think that's not hunting? It is awesome hunting. And all those pigeons and doves. Well, I take that back. The pigeons we didn't take any meat off of, but later on in Iraq, every morning before we went to bed, we would go out and shoot doves, and we would breast them, and we'd put those breasts in the freezer, and we had 100 breasts together. We would break into the chow. I mean, we would go to the chow hall and ask for some things. We would get bacon and we get jalapenos, and we would wrap that dove with the bacon and the jalapenos, and us and the Rangers, because we always were with the Rangers, and we'd eat them. And that's awesome. And that's how you get together when you're over there. We always took our bows. I had my bow on all but one of my deployments to Iraq. I did 5 deployments to Iraq, and 4 of those I had my bow with me, and we would have shooting competitions when we had downtime. There's not a lot of that, but it was a time for you to unwind a little bit before you went to bed in the morning, because we slept during the day, and that's what we did. So sorry about that.
No, man, I'm sorry. I interrupted you right in the middle, and you were going exactly where I wanted to go with it, which is like, I think a lot of our listeners aren't going to be familiar with, maybe, a lot of military details. We're probably not going to, but most people are familiar with this movie, Black Hawk Down. And so when you talk about Somalia, that's something, if somebody were to say to me, a pivotal moment that everybody remembers. I mean, I think that's something that everybody remembers. And your career, I mean, you were involved in that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And from that time, I think most people who know you recognize you as, and we say the Godfather, as somebody who really, since that time, has been a huge part of America's military, especially the high-end stuff. And so I just, I wanted people to know that and understand that, that's your background. So with all of that, the amount of sacrifice guys like you and people who you've trained and worked with, the amount of sacrifice that you guys have put in for our country. You talked about how many deployments away, but the amount of time, the amount of risk, the amount of sacrifice, it's been huge. And so I think for people like me, when I get the opportunity to go out and hunt with you, I think that it's special because I feel like it is special to you. I feel like it's something different to you.
We always, as a vet, you guys can jump in on this because I probably have a slightly different view. Did I sacrifice? I don't think I did. I think that you all sacrifice more than me because you're out there working and paying your taxes so I can do some awesome stuff in the military. We're over in Iraq hunting down human beings. It's like it's the ultimate job. It's not a sacrifice to us. Now, our families sacrifice.
Yes. Absolutely.
I mean, our families, it was terrible on them. But when we stepped out that door and we went down range, I don't think it's a sacrifice. I think we were doing, if you said to...
We were doing what we love to do.
If you look at Randy Shugart and Gary Gordon, there were two of our snipers that were killed in Mogadishu. And we can go on about all the dudes that Scott and I know that were killed in Iraq or Afghanistan, or Ryan can go into detail about the Rangers that were killed or other dudes that we know that were killed. If they were sitting here right now and they came back and you said, would you do it again? They would all do it again.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Every one of them would step up and do it again. Mm-hmm. That's what I believe.
One of the weirdest things I get told, first off, I didn't have the same career you guys did. But
you had an awesome career.
I got out when it was still fun.
Still do.
That's what I did. I got out when the party was still fun. Is when people thank me for my service. I mean, I don't want to stop people from doing that. Like, great, I know that's a weird thing to get told, though, and I never know how to answer that. So I'm like, I got paid for it. It was actually a lot of fun. I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Matter of fact, it made me who I am. I never had these answers, but Mike Hall, who we're working with Mayday Safety.
I bet I know what he says.
What?
You're welcome.
No.
No, that's
okay.
That's what you say to complete that circle.
Yes. Well, and the reason that's what I started saying, because I realized as I grew up, it wasn't about me. It was about the person saying it. Is they want to hear the "you're welcome." It's for them to say thank you, and it's great. He actually says it was an honor. Oh, what a great answer! Yeah, because it's his way of saying hey, it wasn't a sacrifice. It wasn't a bad thing. He kind of gets it all together. So yeah.
No, absolutely, and that's why, because it makes you feel weird whenever it's like, oh wait, and I'm like, because everybody I know is a very humble person in what we do. We don't think about it. I don't think anybody thinks, oh, I'm doing something great. We are just regular guys who are driven to do and passionate about what they do, and we enjoy every bit of it, And so when somebody says that, it's like that's a weird feeling, and I appreciate it absolutely. I like everybody. It's an honor, right, to have somebody say that. I always say that. I was like, man, I think if I could go back in time, and I go, yep, nope, I would do everything the same way. Everything the same way, I have some regrets. But I won't talk about them. I would still do the same thing.
I would say, though, that one of the things that I do think about a lot is when we were doing that, I wasn't just thinking about the fun of it. I felt like I was protecting our country. I felt like I was doing a mission for our commander-in-chief. I never worked under Obama or President Trump, but I worked under Bush and the previous, all those previous administrations that were in while I was in. And I felt like I was doing my thing. So sometimes when we get attacked now and we get out, because I don't care if you're left or right, it doesn't matter. Everybody wants to come up and say, oh, thank you for your service. However, some of those folks, they would hate to find out our beliefs, which are, we believe in the Constitution of the United States of America. We swore an oath to defend that against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And now we come back, and as a veteran, okay, you're not going to attack me because I'm a veteran. I'm a Second Amendment fan. I love to hunt with an AR. I like to shoot long range. I like to shoot up close. I like to hunt with a bow. I like to hunt with a BB gun or whatever. And you're going to attack me. And I went in harm's way to protect the Constitution. And then you're going to, like the Vietnam vets, they come back and people were spitting on them. We haven't had to deal with that. But our politicians are spitting on us when they're trying to take away our rights. And we feel like we fought for those rights, not just for us, but for you guys to do what you're doing too. I had a guy that attacked me on some website, right? And I normally don't respond to anything like that. And this guy attacked me, and these people just came out of the woodwork like, you need to ban this guy from this from this website. And I was like, I had to join because I didn't know what was going on. So he said, you got to check this out. And I read it, and I'm like, ooh, I got to stop this. So I joined just so I could say, leave this guy alone. I fought so that dude can talk smack to me. Did I like it? No, I didn't like it. But Do I want my freedom of speech to be stopped because I'm going to say something? No. So why have this douchebag?
To be fair, I shouldn't have written those things about you online. But
yeah, exactly. So anyway,
every time I've seen you out hunting, so I met you through.
And yes, I do like to hunt out west.
we met through a mutual friend. You were out here doing an antelope hunt. You came back and we did a cow elk hunt. Later, we had the chance to go. This last year, we went on a bow hunt. A bull hunt. Every time I've seen you come out here, you've had a new hunter with you. You've had somebody who is a friend, and you've had him in tow, and you've been introducing people to hunting. Why?
Because it's awesome. I mean, if you have friends and you talk, so let's use Chili as an example. So Chili Palmer, this guy he's just a warrior, and he hunted growing up in Arizona, but he had that long dry spell in the military too, and actually his wife threatened me. She came up to me at an event and she goes, and literally he's family. He's like my brother. He's like my little brother, not just because he's short, but also because he's younger than me there. But his wife come up to me and she goes, Kyle, if you don't take Chili hunting next year, you're out of the family. And it's kind of a funny thing, but it meant so much to him. He was like whining to his missus to get on this trip. And I was like, yeah, I go out and teach all these classes with him, and we both got our day jobs. But, he came out to hunt. It's awesome. Ryan came out this time with me. I always try to bring different people because they get fed up with me after one hunt, so they never want to come back. But no, why would you not want to do that? Why would you not want to bring more people into what we're doing? And then the other thing is, I look at, you talked about what does hunting mean to you? I look at it as a mission as well. And a mission doesn't always end with shooting a critter, like Scott said. That's not a successful mission. When Chili Palmer, this dude is a bad dude. His heartbeat went from 60 beats a minute to 136 beats a minute just because an elk walked within 35 yards of him. Tell me that's not awesome. You'd think a guy like that, the steely-eyed killer commando dude, right? He would just be, death on a stick or whatever. And here he is. He had this GPS thing on and it was tracking his heart rate, 136 beats a minute. That's why I want that dude to come hunting. And now he's a mess. He's buying more gear and he's getting ready to go hunt again.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's why we do it. We want to. And I am always looking for hunting partners that have a similar views to what I have, which is we want to enjoy the outdoors. That killing the animal is not the most important thing. Being with your buddies and. So
yeah, so I was with you guys on that bull hunt, and that was for everybody.
You called that bull in,
which is it's a miracle. I know, everybody's surprised.
That is amazing.
We didn't kill it though.
You're amazing.
No, but man, that was the last day of like a 5-day hunt for me. I had to go out and go to work, but like for me that was success. We saw elk most days. We saw elk. We will not tell you about the spot because we are going to keep that secret because it's amazing enough that we're going to go back. But man, like being up there,
it's way over in eastern Wyoming.
Yeah, it's where Dave hunts.
Yeah. We'll send out a grid. So we actually, believe it or not, I'm sure he won't listen to this. So Scott and I, we actually beaconed his car, so we now know to all the hunting spots that he's going.
That's why it pays to have friends. Friends with certain skill sets. No, man, that was so cool. Like for me, that was like the successful hunt was like we had Chili out there. That to me, like I was looking at Chili, I was like, man, we got to get this guy in front of an elk. We got him out there with his bow, and like when that bull started coming in, and you knew he was coming, it's like the hunt was a success. Yeah,
I was sitting right beside him, and I could see his ears shaking, and finally I lean up to him. I was a nervous wreck too, so don't think that I was like calm. I was a wreck too. And I leaned up and I go, Chili, don't forget to breathe. And he took this breath and then he goes, yeah, then I could see again, because it was incredible. Then we also had my buddy Jason with me as well. So it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. I have some great memories from that trip and a 15-pound rock that you put in my backpack. So really appreciate that.
And one of the things too, we've talked about this on some other podcasts, but I don't like hunting by myself because when I've been out by myself and I've killed animals, I turn left and right and I'm like, well, this sucks. Mm-hmm. Nobody's here to experience this great event. If you like to hunt by yourself, I'm all for that. But I've spent enough time by myself. I like to share the experience, and it's just awesome. I mean, Ryan and I killed a couple of elk day before yesterday, and it wasn't about killing something. It was about this whole experience, and it was awesome.
You know, I talked to a mutual friend, Rourke. We went out hunting, and to me, like, my eyes got opened by that experience of going out with him, just because he made a comment to me when we got done. He said, you know what, this is like, it takes all the skill set I think that vets have, that feeling of brotherhood, that, you know, outdoorsmanship, and like it's a perfect home for it. And I just think, if anybody here, man, if you're not a vet, find a friend who is and go hunting with them if you're a hunter. If you are a vet and you haven't gone hunting, go hunt, because it's just like it's a match made in heaven. It just works.
Yeah, and you know, I'd like to to add to that. So I was talking to a really good friend of mine. He recently retired. He retired, I think, about a year and a half ago, and he's going through the I think the typical process of people like ourselves who we spent 20 plus years in the service. We had a very clear defined mission. We had our identity as being in special forces or whatever it was, right? And so he's trying to find himself again, and there's a lot out there as far as there's a lot of organizations that want to take vets hunting. And many of us are like, no, we don't want to do that because there's somebody else who needs it more. It's not because we don't appreciate it. It's just there's someone else, who we feel is more deserving. But he said, but you know what? I finally went on one, right? And he goes, because you know what, Scott? He goes, I didn't have a desire to kill anything. I didn't want to see anything suffer. I didn't want to see anything die. He says, I've seen enough of that. And I was like, well, that's very interesting. And I said, and I'm not going to say his name. I said, you know what? I said, I don't either. I said, but it's not about that. It's about being outdoors. And he goes, Scott, I'm not finished. He goes, I went on this hunt. It was in Canada. It was a bear hunt. He goes, it was the most amazing thing. I did not think I was going to do it. I did it because he was offered it, and he didn't want to turn it down. He did, and he's like, it was amazing. And then we talked about it. And it's everything I said before. It's like, it's being out in nature. It makes you feel different. It makes you feel small. It makes you kind of you feel more grounded. You kind of figure things out. It's a calming effect. I don't know how to explain it. And he's like, yes. He's in there. Yes, he's all excited. I'm like, I know. And so it's not about the killing. It's everything else that goes wrong. That's why you don't have to kill something to enjoy a hunt. Mm-hmm. Like today we came so close, but you know what? We're just walking back, and finally, I mean, we did a good amount of walking there towards the end, and it's like, you know what? I didn't care that I didn't get the elk. I didn't, because I'm out there with a new friend, an old friend, and we're just having a good time, and we're getting in some good exercise, and it's in beautiful backdrop, clean mountain air. I mean, man, it doesn't get any better than that. And here we are, we're just hanging out talking. So that's what it's about. I think that's how it's therapeutic for vets. And again, it's not going by yourself. It's like it's just enjoying it with others.
Mm-hmm. So Ryan, have you been out to Wyoming before?
Out to where?
This state.
No, I haven't. This is my first time to Wyoming.
Well, welcome to Wyoming.
Thanks, man. I grew up in Arizona, so I grew up hunting in northern Arizona. So 4 years old, on my dad's shoulders, archery elk hunting, Kaibab Plateau, north of the Grand Canyon, stuff like that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Great memories hunting. But as hunting on my own as an adult, I've really only gotten back into it recently. So even when we're out there with Kyle, we down the elk, I'm like, hey, man, show me some tricks here. Because, yeah, I can say I grew up hunting, and I did, but it's easy when your dad's always the one that planned the hunts for you.
Was Kyle kind of like Forrest Gump, where he's like, well, there's shrimp this and there's shrimp that, and you can do it this way?
No, we had a good. It was good.
Yeah, it was an amazing time.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I've had the time now. even though you're working in the firearms industry, you don't necessarily get the time to shoot or hunt as much as you should. And this year, I've taken just a crazy commitment to hunting. I've been hunting in Africa, hunting in northern New Mexico, and now on this hunt, all within a couple months. It's been awesome.
So what I was going to say, one of the deals about, I want to kind of explain Viking Chronicles. We did a lot of killing on that show. That was fun because we were doing something for the farmers or the ranchers. So we went to New Zealand, and I flew around in a helicopter with an AR and shot wallabies. And when we landed, it was like I was a superhero to all these ranchers. They're like, yeah, we heard you shot, you went up for 30 minutes and you shot like 70 wallabies or whatever. So that was pretty cool. We went into Oregon and we shot 2,600 jackrabbits in 3 days. That's a lot of shooting. And we went in a circle one night for 5 hours and never stopped shooting around this pivot. And this farmer, or he's an alfalfa farmer and he raises cattle as well. He was super excited because we were out there doing that. Now, a lot of guys say, oh, if you shoot it, you got to eat it. We didn't eat the wallabies and we didn't eat the rabbits. I'm not sure if that's going to offend your listeners or not, but here's the thing. I don't really care what they think. The why for us, because some people want to know the why. The why for me on that was because it was awesome. It was fun. It was in my wheelhouse, shooting a gun out of a helicopter. It was just like the helicopters we flew in and out of when we were in the service. And the locals were very happy with us doing that. The SWAT team that invited me to go and hunt these jackrabbits, man, it was just fun. It was great camaraderie. We shot them with pistols, shotguns, rifles. It was awesome. So it's. I didn't feel bad when I shot most of those. You
brought up a really challenging question, and so I want to go down a rabbit hole with you on it, which is you talked about.
No pun intended.
Yeah, you talked about the why, and I think that and I've heard you say this before to me, and I think one of the things that I value about your friendship is I tell anybody, you know what, Kyle has earned his opinion and the right to express it on anything that he wants to, and so. We were talking about this the other day, the why of hunting, and you said, you know what I really hate? You said, I hate hyphenated hunting.
Yeah.
What did you mean by hyphenated hunting?
So hyphenated hunting to me would be that we walk into this room and I say, I killed an elk last year. And then the other guy says, I did a do-it-yourself and I killed an elk. And the next guy says, I did a do-it-yourself, I killed an elk, public land. The next guy says, oh yeah? Well, I did it with a bow, or whatever. The next guy says, I did it with a traditional bow. And I'm like, well, I went in there and I, choked him. Whatever, dude. So hyphenated hunting, why can't we just say we hunted and we killed an elk? Better yet, I don't care how you killed your critter. Fred Eichler's a very good friend of mine, and Fred Eichler says, I'm going to hunt anytime season's open, any animal that's in season with any means that's legal. He is a hunting machine, and he's happy about anything that he hunts and anything that he kills with a bow. He's the best traditional bow hunter I've ever been around. He's one of the best coyote hunters I've ever been around. I mean, he's just an all-around good dude, and the point of that is I'm just going to keep hunting. I'm going to keep doing my thing, and I don't want somebody to be frightened off because they didn't backpack in 20 miles to kill this elk. I don't care how far you walked to kill that elk. Did you have a good time? Did you enjoy hanging out with your buddies when you did it? Did you enjoy sitting there sipping on a cup of the crappy Starbucks coffee as the sun was coming up? You know what I mean? Hopefully Black Rifle Coffee will have an instant coffee out soon. Shameless plug there, but Evan's working on that. But I think that I don't care where you're at. I've hunted Africa. I've been to some places where I shot stuff in a high fence and people are like, oh, you're shooting zoo animals. Okay, well, you used a radio to call this other guy to tell him where that deer was at, so what's the difference?
You went to McDonald's last night.
Yeah, they went to McDonald's. The point of it is, stop being a hyphenated hunter. Let's all join together and be hunters. I don't care what animal you hunt if it's legal, and I probably sometimes don't care even if it's not legal. Did I say that out loud?
You did.
Okay. Yeah, that was my external voice. But anyway, don't be a hyphenated hunter. Be a guy or gal that's going to go out and hunt and just be proud of what you've done. If you did it with a traditional bow, that's awesome. I'm happy for you. But that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person because I used a crossbow or I used a rifle or, whatever it might have been.
I think it's interesting to look at the challenge of ethics in hunting, because I think it's a really personal issue, I try not to wax too weird about it, but, if everybody's on a different spot on that journey, and we can probably include a lot more than hunting. We can probably include let's just throw the doors open to the great outdoors, hunting, fishing, hiking, whatever. Mm-hmm. People are trying, there's something inside of them that they're trying to, avoid, that they're trying to fill. And however you decide to do that, that's a real personal decision. You mentioned it when you said hyphenated hunting, and I'll just touch on it because we do have, we have Ryan here who wrote the book
on hyphenated hunting,
on long range
shooting.
The long range shooting handbook, available on Amazon.
I think it was, and I bring this up because you said something to me that's really interesting. So a lot of people be like, okay, well,
I said a lot of things that were interesting.
Well, let's say this one that was interesting when we were talking about, so what's the let me ask you a question. What's the furthest away you've ever shot a rifle? What's the furthest you ever shot a rifle?
I have no idea.
I
know I should have a good answer for that. That's impressive, but I don't know.
Shot
over
a rifle or hit something. Yeah.
Hit something.
Hit something over a mile away.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
over a mile away.
Yeah.
And when you said to you, what do you like? What's your outer limit when you talk about hunting game?
So I've struggled with that on this hunt, and I thought a lot about it when I was getting my teeth knocked out in the back of your truck.
Yeah, that was not by people. That's because he doesn't like the way my truck rides. For everybody to note.
True. I mean, yeah, I don't like it rides like a roller skate on the dirt roads. I'm kidding. Anyway, so we're having a good time. We're talking about this. We're talking about ethical dilemmas while we're out hunting. And when Kyle was just talking about the hyphenated hunting, just now I thought about a hypothetical. As you ask, what's the furthest away that I would consider ethical? And I'm flipping that on its head. What's the closest I would consider ethical? Because I like making the absurd, a theory or the absurd analogy to make a point.
But you're an attorney, so there's something
when people
here.
Say, well, you shot that thing at 1,000 yards away? Well, that's no challenge. You need to shoot it a lot closer. Well, what if I said I shot the elk at 10 yards? Wouldn't you say that's no challenge also?
You'd say,
oh, you
why
couldn't
did
have
you
missed.
shoot that 300 Winchester Magnum with that?
If for some reason the elk walked out behind a rock and it was 10 yards away and I shot it, would I get criticized just as much for being close? So the people that are criticizing me for shooting it far away, listen, you should have gotten a lot closer. Yeah, man, I had to pull the rifle barrel back so it didn't give him powder burns when I shot him. That's how close I was. Are those same people going to criticize me now for being too close, that wasn't a challenge at all?
But for you, the reason I asked the question is because I know that some people might assume that you're going to say, oh, it's a bajillion yards away. It's just not for you.
So I'm used to saying that if your biggest risk is missing, you might be target shooting. If your biggest risk is spooking the animals, you're hunting. And this trip has really kind of made me grow a little bit, and maybe not going to say that much anymore.
Every hunt makes you grow, though, doesn't it?
It is. It's true. Yeah. Being around you guys. You guys are challenging me because we're coming up with ideas. We're having good conversations. So I would say, I don't know what number yards or meters away my limit is. I would say whatever distance I think I can competently hit my target is where I feel comfortable shooting.
I mean, I looked at John over here because I know we've had this conversation too. And for me, I'll tell you, I've got some experiences that are locked into my memory bank.
Right. Well, your distance though would be closer than the elk today.
Yeah, that's funny. That's real funny. I like that.
That was awesome. Yeah.
You're off the podcast. You know what? So I was with one of my other friends, a good buddy who's a hunting buddy who's here at hunting camp. We don't have enough mics. Cody Arnold over there. So we were hunting deer, and I had a 300 Win Mag. I had a mule deer at 75 yards and a poor shot, and it required a follow-up shot. And I say that because, the deer was moving quickly, and when I looked back on it, there's I just wasn't happy that I had to take a second shot at the animal, and that I destroyed a bunch of meat in a rear quarter that I wish I would have kept. And when I look back at that, I'm like, man, I don't know that I'd do that the same way that I did that time again. I would wait. I wouldn't be in such a hurry. I wouldn't be like, oh, wow, this deer is close, and so I have to take a shot now while it's close. Because now I recognize that if I would have taken a little bit more time and thought about it and breathed a few times, I could have done better. I've had an experience, at 430 yard shot with a 6.5 Creedmoor that a lot of people would say like, well, some people have they'd say there's people who say maximum point blank range or turrets or whatever, but that was a shot that was a perfect one shot, bang and down that I would take over and over again. I was with you, Kyle. And I was using a tripod, an extremely good mount, all the right equipment. Took my time.
We were in a standing position when we made those shots. Yep.
Yeah, but but I knew for sure that I set up correctly. I've had a 300 yard shot at a bull elk where I was in a huge hurry running, didn't have my my rangefinder, didn't have my pack, didn't take time to set up a position, and was well within inside 300 yards, and didn't make that shot. And I've gone through that in my head. I will never do that again.
And that's experience, though. See that's the thing. It's like, hey, I can say this. I'm a new hunter. I mean, compared to everybody here, right? I mean, I'm new, and I'm learning every single time. I mean, I've killed an elk at 1,300 yards. Okay. That was probably a lot of luck involved in that. I mean, have I shot out that far with my gun? Absolutely. I had dope on my gun at that. I had everything there. I thought at that time, I could do it, and I can still tell you it was luck. And I've missed shots at 300 yards. You know what I mean? It's like, and so in the process of hunting, right? I can say today, right, I'm a different hunter than when I was, or than when I on my first hunt for elk in 2012. And I think I'm changing, right? It's like you're learning, So to say, well, you should only do this. How about this? Let them figure it out, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody has to figure it out, and then because it always goes back to, it's like, well, what's humane? Okay, so I look at it like this: if an elk was going to die in the wild naturally, okay, he's probably getting mauled by a grizzly bear. How ethically is he dying at that point when he's getting mauled by a grizzly bear? He's running around for his life. He's trying to survive, and then he's or wolves, or he's broke his leg or something, and then he's getting picked apart, and it takes hours for him to die while coyotes and wolves. Yeah. Is that ethic? No. So I think it's silly. That's just my stand on it. It's like ethical. Look, I got a tag. There's the biologists say this is how many animals or elk or whatever the species in this area you can hunt. Okay, well then I'll do that as best as I can. Okay, so I don't look at the ethics of it. Am I out there torturing him? Am I waterboarding? No. Okay, I don't know of any hunter that does. I think it's stupid. And then to say harvest, that's just a way to appease the people who are offended by killing. Guess what? At the end of the day, they're dying. Harvest, they're dying. Like when a grizzly attack, they're dying. They're dying. They're no longer here. So get over it. Okay, that's my stance on that. I just had to put it out there. It just irritates me because I'm about, hey.
Well, at least
it's true, but okay. So you figure it out.
You're open about it. That's for sure.
It's just but you figure it out. Just like in life, when you get in your first fist fight or whatever you do, so you figure it out.
I went to Alaska to hunt Dall sheep, and when I was in Alaska, I shot my rifle out to 775 yards while I was in Alaska on steel, and I felt very confident or competent, whichever way you want to look at it, with that rifle. Now, would I go out and shoot a Dall sheep at 775 yards? Day one? Absolutely not. There's no way I'd ever shoot a Dall sheep at that distance. First of all, I paid a lot of money to go on that hunt because you have to have a guide. It's really expensive. Get out there. We hunt the 11th day of a 12-day hunt, and I have not killed a Dall sheep. Now, I've been within range, which that doesn't matter if that was 50 yards, 100 yards, whatever, but we couldn't find a legal ram. Day 11, I get within 500 yards of a legal ram, and they go over the top of the hill, and it takes us a long time to get up there, and wind starts to come in, it starts snowing, and all of a sudden, one of the guys that could actually see better than me says, "Oh, there they are." Lays it was 650 yards. I don't want to shoot a Dall sheep at 650 yards, but it's day 11. I feel competent and I have some confidence that I can make the shot. I've trained. I'm a military sniper, whatever. I lay down. The wind is blowing. I'm trying to think, okay, how much should I hold at this distance? I dialed my gun, 6.5 Creedmoor. I took the shot, and I missed. And I'm like, he says 728 yards. And I looked through my scope, and the wind stopped. I mean, literally, I could see the snow had went from 45-degree angle to it looked just like it was coming straight down. And I'm like, holy cow. So this critter was going straight up the other side of the hill. I put it on the back of his head, 728 yards. I killed the Dall sheep. Would I do that again? I don't know. Put me at day 11.
Circumstances.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to do. So do I have the right to take that shot? Yeah. If you don't think I got the right, I'll give you my address. You can come talk to me about it, and we'll come to an agreement. Scott will meet us there as well. The point of that is you do what you want to do.
Yeah, you do what you want to do. We'll do.
You do what you want to do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do what's legal, when it's legal, with whatever's legal,
right.
And I'm going to have a good time. If I had missed that animal, I would be upset. If I had wounded that animal, I would really be depressed.
Right.
But would I do that shot again? If all the circumstances were the same, I would absolutely take that shot. Now, one other thing I would say, would I go out in that position and go, man, that's 728 yards. I'm going to look for a spot where I can get farther away. I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to try to look for a position. I've heard guys do that. If they want to do, that's on them. That's not on me. If they want to make that decision, I'm not going to make it for them. Mm-hmm. I'm just not going to do it. So, anyway.
Right, and I can promise you that even if you did happen to wound that animal, okay, and it did get away, let's just say, and he ended up dying, it would probably still be a lot better than being ripped apart by wolves after being chased for an hour. You know what I mean? It's just that's my point. It's like, I mean, yes, we're not. I don't want to. If I'm shooting at something, I want to kill it. That's the whole point of me being there. I want to.
So I got a question for you. Here's one for you.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't ask you this because I already know the answer, but we hunt with ARs.
Uh-huh.
So what's more ethical, the one-shot kill, or you shoot and then the animal's still standing, you shoot again because you have an AR, you can shoot quickly, it's an accurate gun, you've picked that. Why would you not shoot again?
Absolutely, and you know my answer. Obviously, I love to hunt with an AR. AR is it's one of the easiest guns to shoot. It's what I know. Because I've carried an AR for 22 years in the military. So it's what I'm comfortable with. It's what I know, and it happens to be one of the easiest shooting guns. And follow-up shots, because it doesn't kick very much. And if you're using a Wyoming Arms, it's extremely accurate. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I would take that other shot, that quick follow-up shot. Okay, and however many follow-up shots it took. Okay, in order to accomplish the mission. Okay.
So I want to back you guys up a little bit, because here's, I think, what one of the big challenges is. You guys, clearly, this group here, you guys have a shared common experience, unique skills, abilities, life experiences, and if you take another group, like, they're not going to see the world the same way as you do. Does that, what do you say when somebody says, like, puts you in your tribe and says, like, I don't see the world the same way as you do? I'm saying,
well, guess what? That is okay. You have an opinion. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to crush this guy because he wants to shoot, only hunt with a bow. Let's just say that, or whatever. Or it has to be a bolt gun, and he has to wear his, traditional, German garb with the feather in his hair. I don't care. Whatever he wants to do, man, that is his business, okay? Because at the end of the day, guess what we're all doing? We're killing an animal.
Well, as long as when you go fishing, you don't use artificial lures. I'm okay with it. It's like the same thing. I'm sorry for interrupting you. It's like, you better use worms when you're fishing. So use an artificial lure, that's cheating.
And I'll say this as well. It's like, look, again, there was a podcast, somebody thought somebody else's why was important to him. Well, let me tell you something. If somebody's reason for hunting was to feed their family, do you think they care what they're using? No, they're going to use whatever it takes to make sure they can put food on the table in the most reliable manner.
Yeah, people come from different circumstances.
Absolutely.
They have different belief systems, and I think that's the challenge. Is like, you have to respect that people are on that journey.
Well, what are you saying?
differently.
Like people that are against hunting? Different
No,
backgrounds
I'm
or
just
what?
saying, as Scott talks about. So, for example, I have friends who, Dave, Dave Williams from the Your Mountain podcast. Dave's experience hunting is he likes to say that he can count all the animals that like 300 yards. That's like all the shots he's taken in the last 5 years, and it based on where Dave likes to hunt, based on the rifle he likes to choose, based on the people that he hunts with. He has an entirely different experience, and he's on a different place on his journey in hunting. Now, is Dave less of a hunter than me? No, it's probably more of a hunter than
he might even be better,
But I think it's important. I respect where he's at, and he respects where I'm at, and I think that's part of where we need to come to as a community is to say, like, you know what, as long as there's mutual respect, and I can give you a high five for being a bow hunter, and you can give me a high five for the fact that I do like to hunt with a gas gun with an AR, then we're in a good place. And
so what about hunting deer at night with night vision goggles and lasers? Is that bad?
That's Mike.
Because I'm going to let me tell you something right
depends
now.
on the state you're in.
I'm going to tell you something right
It's
now
illegal.
because I've done that, and I've taken my guys out and done that, and that's the best thing that I ever did for my soldiers as snipers in the military, for them to go down range and shoot real people. And we went out and we shot at night, hunted deer with night vision,
And hogs is
and
really
hogs,
good.
same thing. And that taught these guys. And we were way more successful than you would be during the day, obviously. We got to test bullets that we're going to use. That may sound bad, but guess what?
It doesn't really.
All but one of those guys came back alive. And he's one of the guys that was right there training with me, and he ended up not making it back. That's a real hunting experience for me. So yeah, you're not going to go do that because it's illegal for you. But for us, getting the okay from a game and fish department and being able to go in there and do that, these guys would lose their mind. They would think I'm the worst person on the planet because I did that. You know what? I don't care about their why, and I don't care what they think about my why.
Right.
We did it, and
Yep.
it was for a reason.
With Kyle's hyphenated hunting, you could always draw a different line. So I think you're alluding to people that wouldn't want ARs for hunting, which I don't even understand.
I don't think it's like I think that's. I mean, I'm trying to back away from it enough to say, like, you know what, there is a whole lot of there's a lot of hyphens, and there's a lot of there's a lot of tribalism.
I can always take away from somebody their hunt, though.
Yeah.
Even if they did a traditional stick bow they made themselves, with arrows they made themselves, and all this stuff, I can say, yeah, we used Gore-Tex boots.
Yeah.
You drove there in a vehicle. You should have used a wagon. Oh, you made that wagon with power tools.
And trying to come full circle now. Like, we've talked a lot about hunting and a lot, about some specifics, taking it back to, we talk about a lot of outdoor recreation in general. I mean, there's a lot of other activities that I know I like to do. There's climbing, there's mountain biking, there's canoeing, and I know you guys do those same things and love those same things.
Yeah, but I ain't going hiking just to hike. I'm going to go hike to hunt.
But there are a lot of people, like, in that outdoor community, for like all the hyphenated use that we see in the hunting community. I mean, the outdoor community sometimes does the same thing, like the hunters, like, versus the hikers versus hunters, or believe it or not, mountain bikers versus hikers, or kayakers versus hikers because of different permitting issues. And I think as Americans, I think we should just take a step back and realize that, as cheesy as it sounds, this land is your land, this land is my land, and there's enough of this to share. And these multiple
that could
uses,
be a song.
It could.
That should be a
really
song.
could. Yeah.
There's something. It's catchy, right?
It is really
it's almost
catchy.
like I've heard it before.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
These multiple uses are something that we should celebrate, and we should find ways not to try and take them away from each other, but ways to respect each other and to allow for more of those opportunities. Because
I think right now, though,
away,
in our community, I'm just going to throw it out there. There's people that they say they're part of our community right now. They're trying to separate us. They're trying to do that because it's going to work for their political agenda. And we just have got to resist that, because if a little kid's going to go hunting, I'm going to support it. If a 95-year-old dude or a grandma's going hunting, I'm going to support it. If she can drive out in her car out there to the whatever, you're going hunting, so I'm going to support that person. If it's legal, If it's season, if it's the whatever's legal, whatever's in season, and whatever you can.
I want to
take
know
it
what
with.
people's goal. Maybe not their why, but I want to know what their goal is. So if I'm talking to a hunter, and let's say someone else is talking to a hunter, and they're trying to judge their methods, and I go down to the base level core of what's the goal here in this discussion. Well, the goal for that hunter is to harvest an animal. Well, I like archery hunting. I think bow hunting's cool. I think it's an awesome challenge.
Love
okay,
it. Yep.
But if the goal is to kill the animal and then harvest the meat, I'll say it that way, then who am I to say that they shouldn't be using a scoped rifle because they're more likely to be able to get it then?
Yeah.
Right.
So
but
if the goal is to
the
kill
goal
an
of
animal,
the goal of the
So if the
discussion
goal
is
is to
not
get
about
anybody had
what
that
mechanism
choice.
is used. It's about whose ego is bigger. That's what
exactly
the goal
my
is.
point, right?
Yeah.
And if the goal is to get the animal, wouldn't I want them to have the most successful chance of getting the animal?
Absolutely.
Or if the goal is to be the most humane kill, well, bow hunting's awesome, but
that's
not
not the most
exactly as humane as an
yeah.
AR-10 and 6.5 Creedmoor,
Right.
where I can shoot the animal once and my elk went 30 yards and I can follow it up if I need to.
So we went on 2 elk hunts this year, and I think that they're perfect juxtapositions of kind of what we've done. So the hunt we were on this weekend is a management hunt, and it kind of captures it. As game and fish agencies, I think that they're trying to manage 2 different things. They have to manage wildlife numbers, and that's their number one thing. They have to manage those numbers, and they're trying to manage opportunities for hunters. And those things aren't always the same. Some of them, like the goal is like we need to just get as many animals down as possible. And some of them, for example, some states that are really limiting opportunity and giving guys a 3-day season to go out with only this type of weapon, and they're really giving those guys the opportunity to just challenge themselves. And it's an entirely different ball game. What's the real reason they're doing it?
So
it's
here's
to
the
manage
thing.
game numbers.
If you're going out there to challenge yourself, it's a sport, right? So then you'd have that, a whole lot of people would say, well, you're hunting for a sport. That's a no-no, right? It's a sport? No. And you have the traditionals like, no, I do it because it's tradition. It's what I did with my father, and okay, well, that's still not to feed your family, so you could crush that too, right? It's like, so it comes back full circle is what everybody's saying. Look, at the end of the day is this: no matter how you do it, that animal's dying. Period. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't care about your why. All right, it's not important. That's your personal decision. What's important is it's been managed. It's within the law. They're telling me that there's this many that is allowed to be killed in this area because it's been managed and you're doing the lawful thing. That's what's important. That's what I agree with. Everybody needs to be on the same page, because if not, we would have no hunting. Okay, so as long as it's done, I don't care how it's done, right? And again, I don't know anybody torturing animals. It's not like, so there's a whole humane thing. It's like no one can guarantee a clean shot every single time. I don't care. It's called hunting for a reason, right? You can't do that. There's so many variables. Anybody who hunts knows what I'm talking about. So get over it. Stop saying harvest. Okay, you're killing it, right? And yes, you're going to try to kill it. That's the whole point. You're out there, but you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. So don't concentrate on it. Don't focus on that, because at the end of the day, it's all the same, right? It's all the same.
Yeah, and the goal, if you're used outdoor recreation, if I was telling you, Nephi, I went backpacking. Isn't this great? I got some exercise. I went out and I went backpacking and checked it out. You could say, yeah, well, I went backpacking with a 15-pound rock in my pack. So I'm tougher than you are, right?
Didn't want to, but
right,
I did it.
You could always
you a better person.
Yeah.
It's like,
right?
no, we both wanted to get out and enjoy nature. We both wanted to get out and exercise. Just because someone may have done it in a harder way, it doesn't matter, right?
I think
Hey, if guys are gonna, they want to critique our hunting, and I'm gonna critique something about them, because if you really want to be cool, don't post your pictures of you hunting. Then that offends me. It's like you talk all this smack about how much better you are because you always only shoot one shot, or you always only use a lead-free bullet, or you always are doing it on public land, and it's do it yourself, and you did it in a loincloth, and you only wore one boot because it was more of a challenge or whatever. And then as soon as you kill this animal, you take a picture of it and you post it on your Facebook page. And I don't care if you do that. Right, whatever. Right. But that person is that guy. And then they're going to cook it up. Then they're going to send me another picture of the cooked meat. Once again, I'm not offended, but if you're really that guy that's doing it for the right reason, why are you? It should be for you. It shouldn't be for me, because I'm not going hunting to make Nephi happy or Scott. I'm going hunting to either kill an animal or have a heck of a good time not doing it, not being successful like that. Either way, I'm going to be happy. And I really do like to feed my family with that. Do I feed them other stuff? Yep, I sure do. But it's really fun when I can sit down at the table and say, here's what you're eating, and here's a picture of it when I killed it. You know what I mean? And my mother-in-law is like, what?
Yeah, I think, to me, it's unfortunate. And I think that it's unfortunate that, and I wonder how we can get people stepping back from what really becomes just kind of a self-licking lollipop, the discussion of like whose ethics are better, whose ethics are right, whose morals, hunting morals are better, whose ethics are better. And because it really, at the end of the day, it's a road to nowhere.
Right.
That doesn't do, it doesn't accomplish any of the purposes we're all trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I think for us, we all are challenged with. Unfortunately, and here's the probably the biggest challenge, that when elitism creeps in, people who are responsible for elitism, they don't tend to say like, yeah, I'm being an elitist, I should quit being an elitist. That's
You're right. I'm going to slight devil's advocate here.
Go ahead.
I'm okay to have your own opinion. Be a little elitist if you want. Okay, hear me out. Hear what somebody else is doing and maybe think to yourself, you know what, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to choose to do it the quote-unquote harder way. I'm actually okay with that. That's your personal choice.
Right.
Where it's wrong is when you tell that person that they're wrong for doing it their way.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, and I think it's, one of the things I think, man, go with somebody and try it. Mm-hmm. If you think that this, if that's not your way, I know a lot of people who, the first, if you said, what's your go-to big game rifle for mule deer, and I'd say mine's an AR platform rifle and 6.5 Creedmoor, and they'd go like, what, an AR? And I'd say, man, it's suppressed, and don't knock it till you try it. And when most people get that opportunity and try it, guess what? They figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
They say, you know what? There's something to that. And will they take that road? Maybe not. But they're going to understand better, where you come from, by sharing that experiences. And I think, my final thought on this is going to be, unfortunately, in the Facebook world that we live in right now, it's really easy for people to build a little tribe and only talk to those people who think exactly like them and then reinforce that thought, when probably what they need to do is reach over to the guy who maybe has a little bit of experience or knowledge, or have the humility to understand where that person's coming from and go with them and be like, you know what? You're going to make a friend. And
some people like to come up with T-shirt ideas.
I do.
So I got a new one. It's going to have a new T-shirt. It's going to say, "Take a Democrat hunting." How's that sound?
I think that's a great idea. I think everyone should try and do that. It's
Ryan is like, he's shaking his head.
Well, I'm just picturing,
There are lots
if
of
you do hunt
opportunities.
with a Democrat, make sure the word with is clear.
Oh yeah, with. See, he's the attorney, so we'll check with the two attorneys on this
been
podcast
an interesting
and make sure we're good.
conversation.
Guys, you make me now, when I post anything on social media for hunting, you make me want to come up with hashtags that add challenge to it. Yes, I shot an elk with a Wyoming Arms AR-10 and 6.5 Creedmoor, but I did it hashtag 1 foot only. Still tough. Adding something random in there that was still a challenge.
Yeah, well,
you just put hashtag vegan and you get a lot of responses off those posts. That's what I've heard.
We've had I'm going to go out on a limb, say this is the most colorful discussion we have ever had on the Your Mountain podcast. And that's not a bad thing, because I think we've been talking about this idea of looking at, the world that we're in and trying to understand where other people come from and what shapes them and what drives them. And we all need to do that better. And I think it's refreshing to say, okay, what's it like? What's our world from? I know for me in my hunting world, we ask people this question. I want to ask you guys. I think for me, we always ask people, what is your mountain? And for me, my mountain is a place. It's an experience that is more than it's more than just one mountain. My mountain is probably multiple mountains, but here's what it is for me. My mountain is always in the mountains with, it sounds soft to say, people that I care about, with my friends, with people that I believe, who I believe in. their integrity and who they are as people and the things that they stand for, and I believe that they appreciate the same things about me. It's sharing those hunting experiences with them and believing that by doing so, I'm making it more likely that my boys, my 8-year-old, my 5-year-old, someday are going to get to know the same types of people that I have, and are going to have the same privileges that I have from being around those people, from espousing those values. And that's kind of my mountain. That's why I love to hunt. That's why I like to be out there. So with that, we always end by asking, what's your mountain? Scott, what's your mountain?
Well, I would say it's similar in that, and my mountain, okay, is any mountain or any wilderness or any woods or any beach or anywhere that there's nature, and I'm not being crowded by humans, right? So, and then to experience that, my mountain, that area, with people that I care about, okay. Mostly, I'd say I really, 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 really enjoy experiencing that with my daughters. It's like the most amazing thing in the world. Okay, to pass that on to them. Okay, and then everybody talks about deer camp, elk camp, duck camp. Being in the blind. It's being there and sharing it with people that that you agree with, that are good people, that aren't judging, but they're just, I guess you have things in common with them. And it's just being it, because then you're not on edge, you're not on guard. You're just, here we're so relaxed. We're just amongst friends here. No one's judging anybody. And if I said something that Kyle didn't agree with, or Ryan or you, it doesn't matter. You're going to bust my balls. Oops.
It's not a swear word.
Okay. Anyhow, but either way, you know what?
You've done a good job of keeping them off. I got for you, Scott. I've been impressed.
Right?
I've been very impressed.
But it's that feeling. It's like it's almost like a safe space, unless you're doing a podcast and you're not allowed to cuss.
Ryan,
I have to agree with the trend of being with people. Didn't really think about it much before even this podcast, but yeah, being with friends, outdoors, or family. To me, it's really anytime I get a chance to realize how small I am and how all the things I stress out about on my phone and computer at work all the time, how they really don't matter. That's my mountain.
My mountain's a little bit weird. I want to be with my friends. I want to be with the guys I'm serving with in combat or wherever, but I don't want to talk to them. And my mountain could be sitting on top of a Connex when the sun is rising in Mosul, Iraq, or sitting outside of a hangar in Mogadishu, Somalia, or sitting on top of a hill in Cody, Wyoming, when the sun's coming up or the sun is setting. It is, if you're not out there when that happens, the sun rises and the sun sets in the Middle East. You think it's pretty here in Wyoming? They're incredible in the desert. Unbelievable in the desert. If you have some, a windstorm coming in with some dust, it's awesome. So I would say my mountain is when you're there with those people, the right people to be with. And sometimes we don't get to pick the right people. They just get to be there with us. But I want them to shut up for a minute while the sun's coming up or the sun is setting, and just take that moment to reflect on how lucky we are that we get to do what we're doing. We hear about this ethical thing and all this crap that Americans get tied up on this thing. Why did we go to Somalia? We went there because people had been starving to death. There was this famine and they had all moved over to Mogadishu. What would you do to feed your family? What would you do? My mountain would be, I'd do anything to feed my family, right? So yeah, my mountain is sitting there, watch that sun come up, but also remember other people's mountains are going to be different, and respect their mountain, because they might be fighting to feed their family in Mogadishu, and then we have to go in there to kill bad guys or whatever. But
you mean harvest?
Harvest, yeah, harvest bad guys. Yeah.
You gotta make it friendly for everybody.
Well,
guys, it'd be a lot better if you used traditional bows while you were there.
Hey, we were shooting our bows one day. We were at this. We were. This is a true story. Let me finish, man. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. So I'm out there shooting my bow, and this person comes up to me, walks up as I'm shooting my bow across this compound that we're staying in, and says, "Is that operational?" And I'm like, "Roger that." I know they're still telling stories that I was using a bow in combat, which I never did. But tell me that wouldn't be awesome.
Oh,
you know,
I think everybody's talked about
oh,
that.
Dude,
They made a movie about it, Rambo.
My mountain would be doing that, harvesting a terrorist with a bow. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, honestly, thank you guys very much for being on the hunt. Thanks for taking some time to share a podcast with us. So in addition to this podcast, you both have podcasts as well.
Yep, Team VTAC podcast. Come check it out. We're also in cahoots with Your Mountain, so we're going to be doing some joint operations there. I think we're going to have some gear that we're going to give away as well with Your Mountain, so it's going to be cool.
Ryan?
I have 2 podcasts. One's called Going Ballistic, where I don't go ballistic, but I talk about all things firearms and hunting and with shooting guests on there. And I have one called Trigger Words, which is a legal podcast that talks about gun laws and gun rights and things like that.
Well, thank you guys for sharing this experience with us.
us.
Now, the Your Mountain podcast, I'm going to try and not slaughter this, what Dave always says when we leave, but, for everybody that's listening, and, if you think life isn't interesting, go make some new friends, and it'll get interesting. Take somebody hunting. Find somebody around you. Start asking people about their lives. You're going to find you know a lot more interesting people who have done a lot more in this world than you think. And life is about experiences. So go have one.